Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Southern Fried Podcast, a production of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. I'm Rex Nelson, Democrat Gazette senior editor, and one of our regulars, although it's been a few months. I'm glad to have Skip Rutherford back, Dean Emeritus of the Clinton School here in Little Rock, the man I call Mr. Arkansas. And the subject we want to talk about today is population trends inside Arkansas, because Skip, you and I both loving Arkansas history, Arkansas economic development, all of that. We share a real interest in watching population trends in the state.
And we've lived it, Rex.
Yeah.
We've seen the big changes that have been going on. We've seen it in our lifetimes. We've seen it growing up in small towns like Arkadelphia and Batesville, which according to national statistics are, quote, urban areas today. You and I would have some...
Would argue with that, yeah.
Maybe argue a little bit with that. But on the other hand, there's shifts happening, there are things happening, and it's worth having a conversation about.
It really is. The U.S. Census Bureau recently released its updated population estimates for the state. Now, those numbers, Skip, confirmed what people like you and I who travel around the state on a regular basis already knew, and that is the urbanization of Arkansas is really speeding up. I mean, we have long thought of ourselves, and we long were, as a rural state, but more and more we are becoming an urban state with the growth centralized in northwest Arkansas, central Arkansas, and what I now call the Jonesboro-Paragould corridor.
You're right. I mean, when we used to think of urban when we were younger, it would be Dallas or Houston or New Orleans. But we are becoming urban. In Arkansas, at least according to the numbers I saw, is now about 59% urban, 41% rural. Now, we're still a high percentage rural state. Let's not knock that. I mean,
That's right, compared to a lot of states.
Compared to a lot of states.
Certainly.
So let's put that on the table. But what we're seeing is a concentrated urban growth area, and you just mentioned it. When you take the 10 most populous counties in Arkansas, and there are 3 in the northwest, 6 in central, and then Craighead in northeast, you comprise about 56% of the state's population. Now think about that. 10 counties, 56% of the state's population, 3 concentrated in northwest, 6 in central, 1 in Jonesboro. And what that means is not only are the people moving there and living there, but so are the services like hospitals and dentists and grocery stores. And when you start thinking about that, it's not just population relocation, it is business relocation.
And the thing I see, Skip, as I travel East Arkansas and South Arkansas, and as you know, I write a lot about both of those areas. I'm a South Arkansas boy. The thing I see as I travel those areas in so many of the communities is the hollowing out of the middle class. You've got the poor who can't afford to get out. Then you've got the landowners, the farmers who are very wealthy and stay. But what you're losing is those doctors and those dentists and those bank officers and those insurance agency owners and those accountants that used to drive small communities across Arkansas. And whereas I could name towns, I won't do it here, but whereas I would go speak to a Rotary Club 20 years ago and they'd have 60 there, they might have 10 or 12 there now in that same community, and they're all over the age of 70. Do you agree we're seeing that?
I totally agree. And when you look at why people, not necessarily both moving in and relocating from within, inter and intra-state movement, a lot of it is, when you study it, it's job-based, it's healthcare-based, it's education-based. And now what we're seeing in a trend, I think, is this family-based, where a lot of people are moving to be with their kids or their grandkids. Used to, people would come back to the small towns you and I, we're not naming, but we know what we're talking about here. And there's nothing wrong with them because they're, you know, I love those places. But children would come home to farm.
Yeah.
And families would come home to, doctors would come home to work at the local hospital. And that's slowly but surely fading away.
It absolutely is. Now, though Central Arkansas is holding its own, this won't surprise anybody. Arkansas's growth still being driven by Northwest Arkansas in these latest Census Bureau estimates. And this was from 2023, July of 2023 to July of 2034. Get this, the 7 fastest growing towns were all in Benton and Washington counties. And that growth, all you have to do is drive around that region. That growth is no longer just the big 4. It's no longer just Fayetteville. It's no longer Springdale, Rogers, and Bentonville, those 4. Everything in between and close by is filling in. Of cities with 1,000 or more residents, Pea Ridge had the highest growth rate at 17%. Next was Heifel at 15.2%. Tontitown was at 7.9%. So we're seeing explosive growth in what we once thought of as very small communities around the big 4 in Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah, and I think that's right. But I think if in a few days ago, your colleague at the Democrat Gazette, Doug Thompson, wrote a really good piece, page 1 article about growth in Northwest Arkansas is coming face to face with water and sewer issues,
absolutely,
wastewater issues, and you talk about Centerton, and you talk about Decatur, and you talk about Heifel, and you talk about Pea Ridge. They're now in a situation where, you know, if they don't take care of the sewer problem, and I know it's not sexy, it's not one of those deals that you go out and say we're building an arena. I mean, it's hard to go out and say, well, we're going to do a sales tax for a wastewater plant. But let me tell you, that's where Northwest Arkansas is going to face its Achilles heel if they don't start getting on that quickly.
Infrastructure is huge. Affordable housing is huge. Let me throw out a few more numbers because these are pretty amazing. Now, this is just in a 1-year period. Again, July 1st of 23 to July 1st of 24. Among cities with more than 20,000 residents, Centerton, which you just mentioned, led the way with a 7.2% growth rate. The population went from 24,024 to 25,745 during just a 12-month period. During the previous reporting period, Centerton was the 6th fastest growing city of more than 20,000 residents in the country. Most Arkansans would never dream of that. If you would ask who in the top 10 of more than 20,000, it's Centerton. During this reporting period, it was the 31st fastest growing city. Farmington, meanwhile, had a 7% growth rate. Its population, again, in just 1 year increased from 9,786 to 10,473. So there are, as you just hit on, a lot of mayors facing and city councils facing growth issues. Their county judges in Washington and Benton County facing growth issues like they have never faced before. We have talked about the Northwest Arkansas boom now for 30 or 40 years. But that boom's speeding up, as you and I have talked about in recent shows. I coined that word boomier. I think I said the boom is getting boomier in Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah, but again, you go back and sometimes we look at numbers and we look at people are spreading out in Northwest Arkansas, and they're spreading out. And Centerton's a great example. But Centerton's facing a wastewater issue.
Yeah.
A big one. And pretty soon, you're going to, do you put septic tanks out there? I mean, what do you do? So Northwest Arkansas has a huge problem. Now, The other factor you got in Northwest, Rex, is that Bentonville is growing, but Bentonville is attracting wealthy families.
Very high wage families.
And so those who can't afford housing in Bentonville are having to go to the suburbs and drive into Bentonville. You just can't, many people can't afford to live in Bentonville. Now, if you look at the other places in Northwest Arkansas, Fayetteville and Springdale are probably better positioned for long-term growth and planned growth because they have decent systems, but they're going to have to deal with. The University of Arkansas is growing like crazy. It can't keep up with the housing. The housing is slipping over into the Fayetteville market, forcing the prices up for everybody's apartment. Fayetteville's going to have to expand its wastewater.
Right.
When we talk about growth in Northwest Arkansas, and we should, we also need to put growth infrastructure because what they did right was the airport. Their highway system, though expanded, still not adequate.
That's right.
And the sewer thing, I'm telling you, you've been in the communities when you don't have good wastewater, you don't attract industry. The other one thing I was going to say to you that you were talking about numbers, and when you look from 23 to 24 in Arkansas, this is an interesting trend. The under 18 population, declined by 0.8% from 707,000 to 701,000. The 65 and older population increased by 9.4% from 514,000 to 562,000. So what you're seeing, I think, Rex, a continuing trend of a lot of retirees from Kansas City, Chicago, places like that, moving into Northwest and North Central Arkansas.
Agreed. And I happen to think, Skip, that the next big thing, if you will, and let me get back to the point that these are going to be more high-wage people. A lot of them will be retirees, but a lot of them will be high-wage people who live in the area, is going to be, as growth pushes further north toward the Missouri border, is going to be Bella Vista. We have seen Tom and Stuart Walton buy up all that remaining undeveloped land that for much of our lifetimes was Cooper Communities land. That was started by John Cooper as a retirement community, just the same as he did Cherokee Village before and Hot Springs Village afterward. But now they're adding those bike trails. You've already got the golf courses there. But amazingly for Northwest Arkansas, there was still a lot of undeveloped land. And I think we're going to see Bella Vista, Skip, be very hot over the next decade.
I do too. When you look at the cities that are the most populous cities, the top 9, Bentonville now is at 62,000. It's going to keep growing. But the next one is Pine Bluff at 39,000.
And keeps dropping.
Yeah. So there's going to be a new top 10er. And on that list, very well could be Benton, Sherwood, Bella Vista.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bella Vista could be moving up that list. But we take about population growth, and I've gotten into a lot of this just by watching. Boy, you just can't do it without infrastructure. You have got to figure out how to do that. That worries me a little bit about Northwest Arkansas.
Let me throw out more numbers from this 1-year update from 2023 to 2024. Centerton added more residents than Fayetteville, even though it's only a fourth the size of Fayetteville, getting back to Skip's infrastructure problem. 1,721 in Centerton, 1,623 in Fayetteville. Bentonville grew by 2,081 people. The top 4 cities in the state as far as the number of people added were Bentonville first, Centerton second, Fayetteville third, and Pea Ridge fourth. During the 1-year period, Bentonville had a 3.5% growth rate during the period from 2020 to 2024. If you take in that entire period, Bentonville grew at a 14% rate as it added 7,575 people. Bella Vista, just talking about, grew at a 10.6% rate during the 4-year period. That city added 3,192 residents for a population of 33,274. Again, you mentioned maybe them moving into the top 10. Right now, 33,274, and that's before Tom and Stuart Walton really start their development. Skip, I think it's easy to say that by the 2030 census, Bella Vista will be well over 50,000 people.
Yeah, I think that's right. And but Rex, I think when we talk about that in fairness, and this is where you and I get back. And by the way, I loved your recent column on Desark.
Oh, thank you. Great things happening there. Thanks to Paul Guest.
I agree with that. But we tend to overlook another factor that's really happening here. We got so many counties that are losing population. We're 48th in healthcare. We're 49th in dental visits. More than half of our counties are maternal care deserts.
Mm-hmm.
We've got multiple counties that don't have a hospital. Rural hospitals are now even in more trouble. So I think as we celebrate growth, and we should also we can't afford to give up on more than half of the state.
Mm-hmm.
We can't. And we may not be able to turn everything around, but we just can't. We've got to acknowledge the Desarks and the cave cities of the world. We've got to acknowledge the challenges that Helen is facing, the challenges that Eudora is facing, the challenges that even communities that you and I think are pretty El Dorado and
Mm-hmm.
Texarkana. There are a lot of challenges out there.
There really are. And Skip, the thing that worries me, I celebrate right now that overall as a state, our economy is doing really well. The Arkansas economy is hot. But if you look at the increasing cost, already well over $200 million a year, of the governor's voucher plan, if you look at a $1 billion prison the state seems determined to build, and then if you add in what are going to be massive federal cuts in Medicaid and other areas, people who I really trust, that I got to know during my 10 years in governor's office, that know the state budget, they tell me they fear we are headed off a fiscal cliff, and that all we did in this legislative session this year was put that off for another couple of years.
Well, we saw that happen in Kansas. And I think let's hope that doesn't happen for the good of the. But you're right, because what we've got, these cuts are coming. They're real. They're going to impact. They're going to really impact the poor and the hungry. I think when you start talking about this voucher program, which is, a lot of advantaged people are getting.
Absolutely.
A lot of tax
and growing by millions and millions of dollars every year now as we make everybody eligible.
Who already sent their kids to private school in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But notwithstanding that, knowing that factors out there, I think the state's got to take a look. I'm worried about our investment in higher ed. I'm worried about that. I think that's an issue. I really do worry about what we're going to do about these rural hospitals. That's could be a real, and the warning signals are there. Now, whether they come true or not, I don't know, but the warning signals are there. But Rex, when you look back in the great history of Arkansas, and again, when Arkansas was admitted to the Union in 1836, we were 96% forestry land. Today, we're 56% forestry land. we've still got a lot of forestry land.
Yeah, that we do.
And we have to look at the areas that drive the economy and jobs and hope in all parts of the state. And I think forestry is one of them.
Let me throw out a few more numbers before we finish up. Of the 10 most populous cities in the state during that 4-year period from 2020 to 2024, only 2 lost population. You mentioned Pine Bluff. It fell from 4,974 to 38,785. Number 8, North Little Rock is stagnant right now. It fell from 64,674 to 64,498. Little Rock grew from 202,607 to 204,774. So Little Rock has never experienced explosive growth, but if you look back over most of my lifetime now, Skip, it has been steady. And I think that's good when you turn around and look at other similar southern cities that have bled population during that period. And I include Jackson, Mississippi, which is in free fall, as we both know. I include Shreveport, Louisiana. I include Birmingham, Alabama, which is now smaller than Huntsville, by the way. It's no longer the largest city in Alabama. When you compare it to those cities, Little Rock looks pretty good.
Yeah,
it's sustaining growth over many decades, although it is not fast growth.
No, but when you look again, you look at the 10 counties in Arkansas that lead in population. 6 are in central Arkansas, and all of a sudden, they may not live in Little Rock, but a lot of people in Faulkner and Saline and Lone Oak counties work in Little Rock, and particularly with the growth at the port. But let me tell you what Little Rock's done right. Number one, the new interstate highway system, the new bridge over the Arkansas River. At a time when federal funding may be going away, that's a big step. Little Rock has got an abundance of good water. The Lake Maumelle watershed,
Absolutely.
The Lake Maumelle watershed, and the Buffalo National were protected in this last, and give the governor credit for that, for supporting that. You've also got a good airport close by. I mean, it's very, Little Rock has done pretty good on its infrastructure. I mean, you've really, and what makes Little Rock unique, I think, is it has become a city of neighborhoods. You got Soma, you got Petaway, which is a great success story.
Oh, unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
As you know, my son is about to get married, and he and his fiancée, and this excites me, they're both in their 20s. They're building a home in Petaway, of all things.
Well, yeah,
it's the next hot thing for young people.
Well,
that
it is.
age. Yeah.
But you've got Hillcrest, you've got the Heights, you've got the River Market, you've got a lot of neighborhoods where people feel so. You've got a small town identity, Arkadelphia and Batesville, in a big town. The other thing that I would say about Little Rock is that, with all the growth, first dental school, state of Arkansas, opened up. We're going to have 240 dental school students in 3 years. It's going to make a big difference.
It's going to be great for the Riverdale neighborhood.
It's going to be great for the Riverdale neighborhood.
Restaurants, stores, apartment complexes there.
But Little Rock is doing right in a lot of things. Now, I know people want to criticize and always want to talk about the bad stuff, and there are some issues. But when you look at the growth in the port, when you look at the use of the river, when you look at the work they're doing at the airport, I think Little Rock's going to. It's not going to be a growth boom area, but it's steady, and we'd rather be in our position than many of the urban areas surrounding us.
Absolutely. One thing I think we would both like to see, though, and that's back to that infrastructure issue, is the trend in Little Rock with continued growth go to infill development rather than pushing further west. And the fact is, you're not going to be able to push much further west because you get into the protected areas of the Lake Maumelle watershed, as you mentioned, and you get into the Ouachita National Forest. So I think Little Rock's probably going to be forced to do more infill development. And frankly, and Petaway's an example of that, it's so much cheaper than developing a new subdivision because the water's already there, the sewer's already there, the streets are already
Well,
there.
yeah, and you're going to have to Little Rock is going to have to take a look at infill development.
We got a lot of abandoned lots
And
that
they're
could
going to have
handle
to
new
they're going to
homes.
have to be they're going to have to be flexible in terms of zoning, in terms of things that you may not want to get approved in the Heights or Chenal, but that would help with single family or multiple family housing in these areas, small houses. Yes, so I think you're right, and I think there's some examples when you look at the work that Mike Ollendorf's done in Petaway, the work that Adam Fogelman's done, the county attorney who has been a pioneer in the Petaway development. There's some people that know how to do this.
There are, and it is good to see. Now, let me get back to Central Arkansas as a whole. We talk about Little Rock's growing, although it's kind of steady, it's kind of slow. But boy, one of the amazing stories continues to be Conway. Now, number 7 largest city. They will go up in the next census even higher. But Conway grew during that 4-year period from 2020 to 2024 from 364 to 70,711. Skip, when I grew up in Arkadelphia, admittedly this is more than 50 years ago, but we thought of Arkadelphia and Conway as about the same. They were both about 11,000 people. They were both college towns. Conway, I look at this figure and it just blows my mind now to see a city of more than 70,000 people. And again, it's been helped by having 3 4-year colleges there.
Well, and Rex, one of the things that we shortchange ourselves in Central Arkansas, when we think of Northwest Arkansas, we talk about Northwest Arkansas growth, and we realize in these top 10 cities, there are 3 counties that have 2 population bases. Benton County has Rogers and Bentonville. Washington County has Fayetteville and Springdale. Pulaski County has Little Rock and North Little Rock. But then you look at the next growth counties, Lone Oak,
right,
close to Little Rock, Saline, close to Little Rock.
And Faulkner.
Faulkner, close to Little Rock. I mean, and then White's not too far away, close to Little Rock. So when you think, we think Little Rock versus Northwest Arkansas, we need to be thinking Northwest Arkansas, Central Arkansas.
Yeah. And a lot of Arkansans seem surprised when I tell them, because they've read so much, as they should. It's been great for the state what has happened in Northwest Arkansas. But I mentioned to them, I said, the Central Arkansas Metropolitan Statistical Area, the MSA, is 200,000 bigger than the Northwest Arkansas MSA. It's not even close.
It's not even close. And I think that, again, I go back to Metro Planning, back to Jim McKenzie and others who worked on that. The Little Rock's leadership in years past, we've done a pretty good job here, Rex, on infrastructure. Not perfect, but I would rather be looking at expanding our wastewater capabilities versus what our friends in Centerton and those places, because you have to ask yourself, if people can't afford to live in Bentonville and they move to Centerton or Pea Ridge, what's Bentonville's responsibility for the sewer in Centerton? Because these workers are working in Bentonville. So that may be the Northwest Arkansas Council's biggest challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we go, I want to mention something. I like to look ahead. I know you do too, and try to predict to the 2030 census. So what's going to happen over the next 5 years? Well, growth's going to continue in Northwest Arkansas, no doubt, although infrastructure problems could slow it some. You're exactly right. Growth's going to continue in Central Arkansas. But I see a couple of things that if we play our cards right as a state, get the infrastructure in, make the schools good enough to attract the workers, you've got the coming lithium boom in Southwest Arkansas and the steel boom in Northeast Arkansas. And again, if we play our cards right, 2 opposite sides of the state, I think that might result in counties in those areas growing more rapidly than they have in recent decades. In fact, most of those counties have been losing population in recent decades.
And don't forget the defense spending in Camden.
Yeah. Add that to the lithium in that part of the state.
That's right. So, yes, I think there's possibilities there. Lithium's probably going to be long-term. Mm-hmm. Steel is going steadily. And I know my buddy Cliff Chitwood, your friend, and others in Mississippi County are working their tails off trying to make sure the quality of life there is attractive to families to live there. I know they're trying hard. They're working every day at it. So there's hope, because one of the reasons people move to an area is jobs. Mm-hmm. But you've still got the challenges of affordable of housing where they are. Is it adequate? Number two, you got the challenges of education, and so the quality of life issues are something I've always said. The economic development, and by the way, people totally disagree with me on this. I've always said there ought to be a quality of life section in the economic development plan, mm-hmm. because it's not just about building a factory and jobs. It's about building a community, mm-hmm. and there ought to be that part of it. I look at, again, I go back to one of my favorite small towns, and one I think one of the best young mayors in the city, Jonas Anderson in the state at Cave City. You know, they got devastated in a tornado. They didn't get the disaster relief that Texas is getting.
That's right.
They didn't get it. And I'm not faulting Texas. They deserve it. Good Lord, what a terrible thing. But this guy's not crying. He's out there just working his tail off, trying to build it back. Mm-hmm. And we ought to help him.
Yeah. Oh, I could not agree more. Skip, we're out of time. I knew it'd go fast. It's fascinating. I love talking about this, and we'll get you back on soon, and we'll keep an eye on these population trends.
Yeah. It's fascinating, and it'll be something, Rex, that we ought to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. Skip Rutherford, our guest on the Southern Fried Podcast. Thank you for joining us again. This has been a production of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette.